In addition to @FontFace, there are many parts of CSS3 that are either widely supported or supported through proprietary properties that we can use right now. In this movie, we're going to explore some of those properties as we continue to refine the design of the page. Now, one of the things I'd like to do, and I'm just going to go ahead and open this up in Chrome as a way of just giving ourselves a starting point and talk about a few things that we're going to do to our page. We're already using some custom fonts, which is nice. I want to try out this text here in this column as 2-column text to see how it would look. So we're going to do that. I'm also thinking about adding some drop shadows to the headlines because what's a headline without a drop shadow? So we're going to give that a whirl. And the other thing that we're going to do is add some asymmetrical rounded corners to these boxes over here to sort of break up that boxy look and to make it look, I don't know, maybe a little cooler. All right, so I'm going to go back into my code. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down to about line 92 or so, where my presentational styles start. And just above the header styles, I'm going to go ahead and add another line there. And I'm just going to type in 2-column text styles. There we go. And that is going to be a comment just to let me or anybody else that works with this know exactly what's going on here. And inside that, I'm going to type in .text to call. Open up a curly brace, hit enter a couple times and close it just to give myself a start for this rule. Now you're probably wondering, okay, what is text to column? So if I go back over to the source code of my Trails page, I want you to notice that all of that text is in a div with the class now of text to column. So that's all been wrapped in this div tag. A div tag is exactly the tag you're looking for here. You wouldn't want another section tag. You wouldn't want another article or a side tag because that would create a brand new section in your document outline. So here, a div tag is perfect for that. So the class text to column, we're going to be taking advantage of that. Okay, the first thing that we're going to do is just type in column-count 2, and then below that, column-gap of 1em, and then below that, text align justify to justify the 2 columns worth of text. Now, if the CSS3 specification was implemented the same all over the place, that is all we would need to do. But unfortunately, it's not. So we're going to have to go ahead and put in some vendor-specific properties. Now, we're going to do those actually above these defaults so that the way that the cascade will work is it'll try the vendor-specific ones first, and it'll fall back to this one if it doesn't recognize those vendor-specific ones. So we'll start by using Mozilla's. So to do that, I'm going to type in -moz -column -count 2. And then on the next line, -moz -column -gap of 1em. And then underneath that, we'll do WebKit. So I'm going to do -webkit -column -count. That's going to be 2. Finally, -webkit -column -gap 1em. Now, in this entire exercise, I'm also going to leave off operas. It's no slight to opera. Opera has most of these properties as well. It's just a time constraint type of thing. I don't want this to go 15 minutes long, but you can go check out all the Opera proprietary comments as well. Now, you'll notice it's exactly the same thing. So I'm hoping that in the not too distant future, Mozilla and WebKit will get rid of those prefixes so that we can just use normal CSS3 code. All right, I'm going to save this and preview this in a WebKit browser such as Chrome first. There's my 2 columns. It looks pretty good. It's not too bad, right? And then just to see if it's working in Firefox using the Mozilla prefixes, I'm going to test it in Firefox as well. And in Firefox, I'm getting 2 columns as well. So that was really easy. I didn't have to use a lot of extra divs. I didn't have to do any floats, and it's going ahead and calculating it for me. So that's really cool. That's a nice little property that you can take advantage of using CSS3. Well, let's check out doing some drop shadows, shall we? I'm going to keep scrolling down a little bit, and I'm going to go down until I find this particular selector right here, which for me is on line 146 now, but it might be in a slightly different location for you. This is the header pound main header, H group H1. This is our main heading, obviously. And I'm just going to do a text shadow here. So directly under that, I'm going to type in text-shadow. We're going to do 2 pixels, space, 2 pixels, space, 2 pixels. Now, what is that? Well, this is the horizontal offset, the vertical offset, and the amount of blur. Directly after that, we're going to do a color. I'm going to do pound 333 because shadows are not black. I had an art professor tell me that one time. And directly underneath that line, I'm going to do filter. Now, this is for Internet Explorer. The top one will work for everybody, but this is for IE. We're going to do a drop shadow filter. And inside that, we're going to pass a couple of values as well. Color is going to equal pound 333. And then we're going to do an offset X of 2. and then we're going to do an offset Y of 2 as well. So very similar syntax, very simple stuff here. I'm going to save this, preview this in any browser, let's say Chrome, and now we can see our drop shadow on our trail guide. Cool. We're going to add 2 more drop shadows, one for this headline and one for that headline. So I'm going to leave Chrome and go back into my code, and we need to find those headings. So the first thing I'm going to do is scroll down and find the section trail info article H1, which is right here. And I'm going to do a very similar shadow. I'm going to do text dash shadow 1 pixel, 1 pixel, 1 pixel, pound 333. So a little bit of a weaker shadow. Instead of 2 pixels, it's just going to be 1 pixel. We'll do the same thing. We'll do another drop shadow filter. And here, again, we're going to do color equals pound 333. We're going to do an offset X equal to 1 and an offset of Y equal to 1. Again, copying and pasting would be very handy there. And actually, since I'm going to use exactly the same text shadow for the next one, I'm going to go ahead and copy that. And then I'm going to scroll down until I find the aside trail news H1. That's who I'm looking for now. There it is. And at the bottom of that, I'm going to paste the same text shadow. So I'm going to save that, test that. This time I'm going to test it in Firefox to see how we're doing cross-browser wise. And indeed, now both the Ojai Trails, the trail news, and the trail guide all have those drop shadows. And you know as well as I do, if you're using drop shadows, you're a real graphic designer. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. Now, our final thing that we're going to do is the one that is going to take the most in terms of syntax, and that is we're going to round some corners. However, I don't want all the corners rounded exactly the same. I'm going to do an asymmetrical rounding. This requires a lot of stuff going on. So let me show you what I'm talking about. There's a selector just below the Trail News H1. It's this aside trailnews.news. So this is what's styling all of those boxes. We're going to go ahead and do some asymmetrical rounded corners. And instead of doing just the normal CSS3 properties first, we'll go ahead and do WebKit, then Mozilla, then those. And unfortunately, again, it takes a little bit. So we're just going to do dash WebKit, dash border, dash top, dash left, dash radius. And we're going to do 0. So 0 pixels for that. Then we're going to do dash WebKit, dash border, dash, and I've got code hinting, so I can't avoid using it. It's just so nice. I'm going to do WebKit border top right radius. And again, 0 pixels. Then I'm going to do dash WebKit, and I'm going to do the bottom border right radius. So bottom border right. And here I'm going to do 20 pixels. And then finally, I'm going to do dash WebKit border bottom left radius, and I'll do 0. Now I need to repeat the procedure for Mozilla. Then I would need to repeat it for Opera. I'm going to skip Opera, and then we're just going to pass like the normal sort of proprietary border radiuses. So I'm going to move on to Mozilla now. So dash MOZ dash border. And again, I'm going to take advantage of the code hinting I've got here. I'm going to do border radius top left. So I'm going to do Mozilla dash border dash radius dash top left, and top left is all one word. So you can see there is a difference in syntax. Again, that's going to be 0 pixels. Then I'm going to do dash Mozilla dash border again, and this time I'm going to do the border radius top right. So border radius top right, all one word. That again is going to be 0 pixels. Then I'm going to do dash Mozilla dash border radius, and this time I'm going to do bottom right. So bottom right, all one word, the bottom right is. That'll be 20 pixels, again, in keeping with what we did above that. And then we got the one more to do, Mozilla border radius. This one is going to be the bottom left. That's going to be 0 pixels. Now, we're finally down to just our normal border. All right, so I'm going to do border top dash left. So I'm going to do border dash top dash left dash radius, and that will be 0 pixels. Then I'm going to do border dash top dash right dash radius, 0 pixels. Then border dash bottom dash right dash radius, and that's going to be 20 pixels. And finally, we're at the border dash bottom left radius, and that is going to be 0 pixels. So we're going to go ahead and save that out, and let's go ahead and try that in a WebKit browser in Chrome. And we can see now we're getting the bottom right-hand corners rounded. It looks lovely. And just to make sure that it's working as well in a Mozilla browser, we'll go to Firefox, and we're getting our rounded corners there as well. That's really cool. Now, dealing with these vendor-specific properties is a bit of a pain. I will grant you that because I just had to type all those things in. However, it does allow us to achieve some really cool styling effects. Now, keep in mind that browser support and the CSS3 specification continues to change and evolve. So if you're going to use these, go ahead and monitor the use of those vendor-specific properties with an eye on removing them when possible. So hopefully they'll sort of remove a bunch of those things and we can just go back to using what's in the standard, and wouldn't that be lovely? But it would still allow us to achieve some really cool results.